How's it going, Raiders? My name is Ryan, and this is TRC episode 34. On today's episode, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We are back from our 2-week hiatus. But on today's episode, we are going to be having a tribute episode to a good friend of mine who recently passed away. And we're also going to be talking about all the various friendships and people we have bonded with, either over game or through game. And without further ado, Tanks, everyone's ready? Pull timer on you.
The heroes have made it to the glorious finale.
Alright, here we go, guys. Set up your chairs, focus up, let's do this.
Alright guys, get buffed up.
Okay, so we want to soak the annihilations,
Get your shit together.
then we want to target the annihilator,
Put the big girl panties on.
move back to avoid damage from eradication,
I think I've disconnected.
then we target the decimator,
Can we pull already?
then we target boss.
I hope you can swim in molten lava.
Let's kill this dragon.
How's it going, Raiders? Welcome back. Like I said, my name is Ryan, and you are listening to the Raiders Confessional podcast, where we talk all things in-game PvE-wise in the world of Azeroth. Joining me today, as always, are my good friends Martin Larson and Oreo from the land of Canada and Denmark. How's it going, guys?
Land of Canada, what? What is that
Canada
land?
and Denmark.
Oh, okay. I'm pretty good. I had a 2-week hiatus, so I've been busy, not playing World of Warcraft. Oh wait, playing World of Warcraft.
See, I say what? I mean, things are going pretty good. We've been busy.
Yeah, busy indeed. Before we get into today's show, guys, for those of you listening, whether you're listening live or on your podcatcher of choice or even on the YouTube video version, I definitely want to say a big apology to all of you. We have had our 2-week hiatus, and that is largely in part because of me and my life. I recently had about a 10-day period of time where I had a lot of life happen unexpectedly, and as a result of one of those incidents, we are having today's show in honor of a good friend of mine. But essentially in 10 days time, I saw a best friend married, I buried a best friend, and then I also met another best friend who some of you have known as a past host, Cole. He recently had a baby, and so in those 10 days time, I had all three of those events occur, and the friend I had to go to his funeral for, he actually passed away, hours before my other best friend got married. So it was definitely a whirlwind of emotions, a very long 10 days to say the least. But I am definitely excited to get to share his story, my friend that passed away, with all of you guys. He definitely was a unique individual and a big part of my life for a very long time. He and I lived together for almost 7 years when I was at college down in Texas. So, but before we get into any of that, I just wanted to again say sorry for the 2-week hiatus. We are back. We will definitely jump right back into the swing of things here in the next couple of weeks with our typical format with the role-specific episodes and various other topics. So, fear not. Just stick with me for one more week as I kind of pay tribute to my fallen friend here, and we honor some of the other friendships the three of us have made throughout games. And we will continue to move forward. So thank you again, and my apologies for the 2-week hiatus. However, moving forward, Marty, I kind of know what Oreo's been up to, but I don't really know what you've been up to other than installing some purple lights in your room there.
It's my epic light. item level 320 or something. I don't know. No, I've been raiding. I've jumped back into raiding as something new, as an elemental shaman, and we have been clearing normal. We went straight into normal just to get a feel for the instance and encounters. And I think in the first night we cleared 7, and then we finished off Cahoon the day after and went into heroic. And how many weeks is it now? Is it 3 weeks with raiding we've had? So we have cleared the 7 on heroic, and we jumped into Mythic and killed Talark just because he's apparently like a loot pinata at this point. So sitting there, rank 4 on the server, and having a good time.
Cool, man. Are you liking the expansion so far?
I think that's something
Loaded
we
question.
can talk a lot about. I mean, overall, I've had a really good time. I really enjoyed the story and everything so far. I like the new raid. I think it's some good encounters, and overall, I think I'm very positive about it. I know there's a lot of talk about an unfinished product and stuff like that, and people complaining a little bit at the moment. But overall, I'm having a really good time. Um, I wish 8.1 would be a little bit sooner because of elemental shaman changes, but I mean, I'm doing pretty good. I'm beating some of our regular DPSs on certain fights and stuff. So I mean, it's not bad at all. But yeah, a few minor tweaks would be nice.
Yeah, I don't think you're the only one feeling that way too. So, hopefully Blizzard does indeed make some of those changes sooner than later. But Oreo, man,
I'm pretty sure Kana from Method is loving the non changes because
Oh.
he renamed his character doing this their world first stream to the Benched. So I mean that's probably I think that's a pretty good summing up of how Elements and Shaman is performing at the moment at highest difficulty.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of a big deal because he's been kind of one of their main players for almost every world first, I would think, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not completely sure about his history. It's the first time I don't really know the Method people that well, but I've been following a lot of the live stream that they did, and since he was like a main commentator because he was not really on the team, uh, yeah, so that's basically all I know about him. But I think it came up during the stream as well that his main alt was a Shadow Priest, which is also not in the best spot when it comes to the highest difficulty content at the moment. So yeah, he got pretty much shafted by Blizzard this time around.
Indeed, indeed. Moving on over to Oreo, man, what have you been up to lately? I know you were kind of helping keep the guild running while I was gone.
Yeah, I mean, we basically, well, we have normal completely on farm now. Heroic, we got Zol down this week, so we just have Mithrax and Gahoon left on that. We also jumped into Mythic as well just to get that kill. It was actually a lot easier to do Mythic Taylock than it was to do Heroic Zul for our group for some reason, but go figure.
It's part of the growing pains of being in a raid guild, especially one coming from the ground up.
Yeah, we're basically starting all over again, and there's always growing pains and there's always progression pains, but we're just gonna keep pushing through it, get as far as we can.
We actually had like a fun incident on what's his what did the boss before Cahoon? What was his name again?
Mithrax.
Mithrax, yeah. Because we were actually just warming up for him and just learning the fight, and all of a sudden we were in phase 2 and everybody was up, and we were like, oh okay, second, first part, because we didn't really pre-pot or anything, so just use your pots, go ham. And then we actually downed it, and we were like, oh okay, this is cool. So sort of like really accidental kill, but yeah, I think that's just one of those fights where when you get everything right, then it's pretty much a kill. So
Yeah.
definitely a fun fight for Elemental, but because we get to shine a little bit with our AoE damage, so that's cool.
Yeah, for sure. We hopefully we'll get there too here soon. We'll jump back in this next week, and hopefully people are kind of getting their feet on anything. We have quite a few players who have raided, in game in the past, and they took, either an expansion or 2 or more hiatus, and they've come back to the game. So, we have a lot of growing pains of people kind of learning each other's play styles, healers kind of figuring out where they fit in the mix of things. A lot of times tanks will dip low, and it seems like all 4 healers are other than maybe Oreo, are throwing their healing our way, and the raid suffers or whatever. But we'll get through it, and we'll finish moving forward, and hopefully we'll get better and better and progress even further each week. So staying positive, and we'll definitely jump into some more of this discussion later on, maybe in a few episodes where we talk about, I know with Dan and Cole and I, we definitely made it a point to talk about our woes and our successes when we were building, the old Axis of Ignorance guild, as we kind of went through those growing pains, and we'll certainly do the same here. Things are a little bit different this time around, but that's definitely a topic for another show. So for the guildies listening, looking forward to get back in next week and get some bosses down. So let's do it. Moving forward, like I said earlier, this show is a little bit different than normal. Again, for those of you who maybe just now tuning in on the live stream, my college roommate and one of my best friends, who I lived with for almost 7 years, passed away unexpectedly a couple weeks back. And it was eye-opening to say the least. But the reason I wanted to do today's episode is, first and foremost, I wanted to share the story of how he and I met. And it was my first semester at Texas A&M University down in College Station. And I had sat down in my engineering calculus class, and I heard two guys behind me talking about World of Warcraft. And so, doing the typical thing, I turned around and said, "Hey, you guys play World of Warcraft?" And they, of course, said yes. And I said, "That's cool, man. What server are you guys on?" And they told me Horde Hakar at the time. I said, "That's kick-ass, man. I play Alliance on Thunderlord. Nice to meet you guys." And the professor started talking, so I turned around, and that was the end of it. We did our typical class, sit there and act like we're listening to the professor, but not really, and went about our day. Later on in the day, when I was done with classes, I was back in my dorm room, and I set my bags down, and I wandered down the hall to use the restroom. And as I'm standing there at the urinal, this individual, I could see, kind of out of my corner of my eye, I could see this person walk up, and this person chose the urinal directly next to me. And immediately I'm in my head, I'm like, "You bastard. You broke the cardinal sin. There's 4 other open urinals, and you chose the one right next to me. Like, what the hell?" So I don't say anything, and as we're kind of sitting there both going about our business, I could feel this individual kind of turn to look directly at me as we are relieving ourselves. And I'm, at this point in my head, I am screaming, "Don't you freaking do it. Don't you dare talk to me while we're taking a piss. We're not bros. Like, you don't do that, And of course he does it. He turns right to me and just looks at me and goes, "Sup?" Being the sarcastic jackass that I am, I'm like, you asshole. But I'm laughing because it's kind of funny, And that's all he said was "sup," and I kind of chuckled and I said "sup" back, and then he left and finished up, and I did the same not shortly thereafter. And as I was walking back to my room, I noticed the room directly across from mine, the door was open, and it was my roommate the guy that would become my college roommate, and he and one of his buddies he grew up with were sitting in our dorm room, and they yelled at me like, "Hey, we're going to lunch. You coming with?" Like, not even like, "What's your name? Where are you from? How's it going?" Just, "We're going to lunch. You coming with?" And so I left, I went with them, and that was the end of it. That marked my 7-year stint of living with this guy. And, obviously we met because of World of Warcraft. And I can tell you, man, I stood in almost every expansion's pre-release line at Walmart at midnight in College Station, Texas with this guy to buy every expansion. We raided the entire time. He stayed consistent. I took breaks, off and on because I was in a fraternity and I had other college things going on. But we raided the whole time, and there was always one common theme in our lives, whether we were partying pretty regularly or not partying or whatever. Like, we always played video games together, and World of Warcraft was always the top of the list. And I felt very prudent to talk about today meeting friends in game or through games or over games, because this person was absolutely important to me, and I felt it was a good way to honor him, and then also shed some light on. I get asked all the time, how do you become so close with these people, some of them who you've never met? My answer is always one and the same. When I look at how much time I spend with people in real life versus in game, more often than not, I spend more time with people in game than I do a lot of people in my life outside of game. And it's like, when you spend that much time with an individual, you really get to know them. I'm going in December with my girlfriend. We're going out to Boston for a wedding. And this is through a guy I met playing World of Warcraft, and he's become one of my best friends. I'm in his wedding. And I've met him once. His significant other at the time flew me out as a surprise for his birthday, and I had a blast. I got another buddy that lives in Buffalo, New York. Same thing. He came to visit me one time, met him in World of Warcraft. Another friend who my roommate and I actually met through World of Warcraft. He's from Utah, and he drove all the way down. And this was, I'd only met him for 5 minutes one time prior to this, and then I spent the whole weekend with him for the funeral. And it's definitely it kind of opened my eyes that there are a lot of people in my life that I have absolutely bonded with either through game or over games. So I know Marty, I know you have a pretty good friendship with a particular individual because of World of Warcraft, and I definitely want to give you some time to talk about that. And Oreo, I don't know if you've had any of these similar experiences or not, but I know you and I have met through game, and we've obviously gone through some shit with guild hunting and people acting crazy in guilds and having to put up with it all. And now we've landed in this group, which I think things, we definitely have our struggles, but things are going overall well. But yeah, man, it's I was kind of hoping to break the stigma that meeting people online and spending this much time with people online is not as necessarily bad as the general public would perceive it to be. So I would definitely like to open the floor to you, Marty. I know you have a really good story with a particular individual.
I have a lot of stories, and I don't know which particular person you're talking about. I mean, first I was thinking that's a nice way you introduced yourself, uh, but um, but yeah, no. I mean, I have because of World of Warcraft, I have so many stories. So I don't really know where to start. And Michael in the chat is saying,
Yeah.
obviously it's him we're talking about. Sorry, Michael, not this time around. But I don't know. My story sort of starts way back in vanilla at some point, and just when you think about it, and I think that's one of the crazy things sometimes, because I have a few people who are still today, like 13, 14 years later. One of them is my roommate now. The other one is like I do a podcast, or well, multiple podcasts. I can say now with him every week, but it all started like 13 years ago. And when you think about it, we had to first of all choose the same game at the same time, the same server, the same faction, be in one particular zone doing the same quest at the same time. And when you look at all that, just imagine if one of them hadn't happened, then I would have met someone completely different, and that's pretty crazy to think about. But anyway, what happened was that I ran into this dude called Tom, that he was making a guild, and we had our guild, and but we started talking, and we enjoyed each other's company, and we started playing, doing dungeons and things together. And at some point, we were like, hey, maybe we're doing so many things together. Our guilds are doing so many things together. Maybe we should just merge them. And so we did, and we started like a proper raiding guild. Um, and Michael is saying that he met me through Tinder. That's interesting.
The intercontinental tender.
Exactly. But no, so we actually ended up in the same guild together and started raiding. And actually, in the beginning, I didn't really like him that much, because he at that point he really enjoyed playing alts, and so he was always busy. He didn't really feel like doing guild stuff and helping people out. He was always just me. I want to do this if you and I don't want to help you guys. And he was actually being a real a-hole.
This was Tom?
This was Tom, yeah.
Okay.
Tom, that I'm for those who don't know, I do a few podcasts. We have the Blue Recluse podcast and Nerd List podcast, together with today. Anyway, a lot of things happened. The guild sort of broke down at some point. We had another guild poaching a lot of our members, and we had to disband the guild in the end. And I think at that point, a lot of us were sort of like, you know what, I think this is it. I was seriously heartbroken because of it. How strange that even might sound these days, but it was a lot of good friends that I didn't really know. Well, online friends, but I mean, I didn't really know when and if I were going to talk to those people ever again. And then Tom at some point said, "Hey, how about we start over? How about we played hard back then? How about we will try something new? We will start fresh. We'll start on the alliance side." And the core of us was still left. We're like, yeah, let's do it. And then we started out. It was before there was server transfers and boosts and whatnot. So you when you started over, then you had to level up from back from scratch and back in Manila. That took some time, but still we enjoyed it. We had some good times, and we managed to rebuild the guild and started raiding. And I think that's around the time when the Burning Crusade then finally hit. And we met more and more people, and we got them into the guild, and we started raiding, and I think that's when the core people who I still talk to today was finally together in one guild. And we had another incident in the Burning Crusade where we had to put raiding on a hiatus, and then we came back in Rise of the Lich King, and I think that was before Legion. I think that was the single expansion where I killed every single boss in an expansion and raiding all the way through. But anyway, then at some point there was one guy who decided to, hey, how about we meet up in real life? And I was like, yeah, cool, that could be cool. And we decided to meet up in the UK because a lot of people were from the UK. I'm from Denmark, and he was from the Netherlands. But we decided to meet up in the UK, but then I got I sort of lost my apartment, so I had to find a new place to live. So I was like, I can't go traveling now. I need to find a place to live before I could do that. So I had to cancel that trip. But this dude, yes, he was like, from the guy from the Netherlands. He was like, well, it's a shame you can't come. How about I'll come visit you during New Year's? And I was like, yeah, that could be cool. So we met up there instead, and he really enjoyed Denmark, and I was like thinking this is a really cool country. And the year after, he was like, hey, can I come back? Can I come visit again at New Year's? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And so we had New Year's once again. And then the word sort of spread to the guild that now we had celebrated New Year's together 2 years in a row. And I was going traveling during the summertime and got to meet up with some of the other people from our guild that was also from the Netherlands, because I went there to visit Jesse. And so we started to know each other a little bit better. And then at New Year's, more people were like, hey, if we're doing something, maybe we can come as well. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's have a big party. Let's have a New Year's party in Copenhagen. I think that first year we were like 6 or 7 guildies or something like that got together from all over Europe, met up in the same country and celebrated New Year's. And this thing just every year it just grew larger and larger and larger. And I think at the year we were the most people, we were like 25 people from or something like that from all over Europe celebrating in the same place. And yeah, so it sort of just became this tradition. But then time goes on. Some people stop playing World of Warcraft. Some people you keep contacted, and some you just lose the contact sometimes. It's just life. If sometimes it happens. But I think the core people, we're now down to a core people of like 7 people in total, I think. And we still to this day, today, every year we meet up for New Year's. And in this group, there's also Tom, who I later on, when I actually met him in real life, found out that he's actually not a big a-hole. He's actually a quite nice person. And I think it was my sister that at some point just said, hey, it's totally like you two are brothers. Like you have known each other forever, and you have the same sort of quirky humor and things like that. And we both had to agree to that it sounded very possible that we were some kind of brothers from another mother. A few years later, Tom asked if I wanted to do a podcast with him, and now we've been doing that for 4 years. And yeah, so that I think that was like the speed run of everything that's happened with with the group of people who are still playing World of Warcraft. Some of them actually don't play World of Warcraft, but we still meet up. We're still friends, and when we meet up, it's sort of special when we do, because my Copenhagen friends, I know that I can just call them tomorrow and say, hey, do you want to hang out? And then we can go hang out. Whereas when all of the World of Warcraft people, when we are together, it's something special because it's something that happens too often. So when we're together, we are actually, present and together, and it's different somehow. So, so yeah, every New Year, we are at least once a year we're meeting up. We have done other things like going on summer vacation. Last year, we went to Mallorca, or rented a summer house and just went 6 people, 7 people, whatever, and stayed there for summer vacation. So yeah, it's a cool bunch of people that I'll definitely say some of my best friends, even though that some of them I don't speak to on a regular basis, others I do, but when we are together, it feels like, it was yesterday that we were together the last time.
Yeah, and I knew that was Tom was kind of the one I was getting at because I knew you had told me that story previously, and your kind of friendship with Tom definitely reminded me a lot of how my roommate and I were. We kind of same thing. Like we were way too similar to be helpful to one another at certain times because if one of us was doing something stupid, the other was probably right there alongside of him. But same thing, same humor. Obviously, the urinal story, the fact that I laughed reflects that. But yeah, Oreo,
Yeah,
what about you? Go ahead, Marty.
Go ahead, Marty.
yeah. I mean, yeah, sorry. I was just sort of like, because I wrote down a note here as well. I actually sort of met my girlfriend indirectly because of World of Warcraft as well, because I met her through Tom, actually, because Tom went freelance last year and they got part of this network of people who try to work and travel at the same time, and digital nomad thing. And they went to some meetup in Budapest in Hungary, and they asked me if I wanted to join, just to so we could do something together. And my current girlfriend, actually, who's from Germany, turned up to that event as well, and we met through that. So but I would never have gone to that event if it weren't because of Tom and the things that he's doing in his life right now. So
Sure. What about you, Oreo? Do you have any stories of people you've met that you've become really close friends with because of?
Mine's gonna be a little bit of a shorter story than both of you guys. I guess just kind of going through people that I've played with throughout the years. Not so much like met in real life, due to the fact that most of the time my raid times sort out on East Coast time, whereas I'm in Western Canada. Therefore, like, it's just too far for us to travel. It's like a very big deal to get across country. So, um, I guess it goes back to, I've played off and on with a small group of people since vanilla, back when I was a hunter in Molten Core doing the trank shot rotation on the enraged bosses, because that was important. Don't mess
Mm-hmm.
that up. From that all the way forward to, like, play with them through Burning Crusade. At the end of Burning Crusade, when we decided to take a break, I pushed a little bit harder into like Black Temple, all that kind of stuff right at the end of the expansion. And I stuck with the group that I did Black Temple with into the beginning of Wrath of the Lich King. I was one of those people that re-rolled Death Knight. For some reason, I thought that I could tank. Uh, so I think I tanked with that guild for, I think, all the way to, I think I I think it was ICC. I remember playing ICC, and then at the end of that, um, the group that I originally played with back in Vanilla had kind of started getting things back together. They decided to go Horde again, so I'd gone Horde as a paladin, and I healed all of Cataclysm on a Holy Paladin, which was super awkward. We think about how nice the playstyles are for some of these classes, but back in the day when you had to use Holy Power as a healing paladin, it was just awkward as hell. That's a little side note for everybody who missed out on the Holy Paladin healing with Holy Power. Um, and I think the the one that I kind of stopped, being so, I guess the word would be casual with my rating, and if we killed and if we did anything was kind of ended at the end of Cataclysm. We were doing a couple heroic bosses. I think it was like the first three, and after that we just couldn't even get our shit together long enough to get any farther. But definitely with Miss was the very first time I was in a cutting edge guild, and it kind of put a, not so much I want to call it a divide between the people I used to play with, but I mean when you're putting in the time and effort on one character to try and make yourself, you know, one of the better competitors for getting these then heroic cutting edge kills, it never really worked out to play with those people for all of Mist, it seemed like. Um, yeah, and Warlords I think was the one that I took all the time off because I think it was 2 months into the expansion and I realized that it just absolutely sucked. Which I getting a lot of nods and agreement over there. I know a couple people kind of continued through WoD. Um, Nowadays, I don't even think a lot of them really log on much more than to do like basic heroic dungeons or to do LFR anymore. A lot of people don't have a lot of time anymore to do that kind of stuff. In Legion, obviously, I met and started raiding with Ryan about halfway through the expansion at Nighthold as a hunter again, and decided that I would be the guy to kill Ryan every time we took a break.
It's true. He does it still.
Yeah.
He ruined my number
So
one parse on oh, what was the bridge boss? What was that one?
that was Iminar, wasn't it?
Yeah, Oreo ruined my number one parse on that. He decided he didn't like the fact that I was destroying the meters, so he ran over with the impulse bomb and blew me off the side. That was fun.
It's the only way I could do it.
Yeah.
I didn't have misdirect anymore as a warlock, so I had to do something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just more or less going through. I guess what is it now? How many years is Warcraft now? 14 years, coming up on 14 this fall.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
From a live perspective, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, not so much keeping, best friends with people, but definitely having like a large network of people that I've played with throughout the entire expansion. You still look them up on like WoW Progress to see how they're doing, um, things like that, and just even to see if people are even playing anymore. Because you look at, I know Ryan and I raided with a guy in Legion who just dropped off the map one day. Just he was a mythic. He went and joined this horde mythic guild and thought that he was going to go change the world in his eyes. And then it was just one Tuesday, he just never logged on ever again. That was a what the hell moment for us.
Yeah, that one definitely has an interesting backstory too. That
I don't think we have time for it.
Yeah, let me put it this way. We knew this guy, and we had, after our guild that Oreo joined us with had broken apart, we made a small group of us were messaging each other back and forth in Discord, kind of like, well, what are your plans, like that. And so we made the decision to try and stick together. And obviously, not everybody could fit the same raid times like that when we found our new groups. And he went one way and us went the other, but we all stayed in touch. And then, like Oreo said, he just stopped logging on. And it was kind of one of those things like, okay, this is really weird, because normally when he wasn't playing games, if he was busy with life, or like, you get a hold of him still in Discord, and you couldn't get a hold of him. So we did some digging just to see if he was okay, if something happened to him, and we found out some information. Yeah,
we had cold digging information on him, seeing if he was in obituaries or shit like that.
Yeah, and needless to say, we found some information about him. We probably won't be hanging out with him ever again. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it's interesting how people can put a face on, I guess.
Yeah, which I guess is the complete opposite of what today's show was about.
Yeah, the friends that you play with and the ones you'll never talk to ever again.
But for those of you that may remember, we had a ranged episode where we talked to a good friend of mine named Tronic. He and I and Cole raided together back in vanilla, and we can't prove it because they didn't keep raid tracking at the time, but we arguably could have been world first on a Nefarian, and we ended up 10th because, or sorry, no, we ended up like 5th, but we were 10th in the world on Rag, because we had but on Nefarian we had the wrong combination. We had the hardest combination of the dragon ads. But at that time, to be at that level, you were raiding 5 to 6 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week, and we were doing things like stealing other guilds' raid lockouts. We'd go in with them, a few of us would go in with them and get them as far as they could go. And then once they were done, we would take their raid lockout and finish the raid so we could get as much gear as possible. And we did that all week long. And when you're spending that much time with somebody, again, you get to know them. And Cole and another friend of ours, they went to BlizzCon and they met these guys. I didn't go that year. But the year I finally did go, I met him and some other people, and he's been a good friend. And he and I have raided off and on together through the various expansions, and he and I still stay in touch. And oddly enough, that guild that we were in at the time, they have since made a Discord, and there's only a few of us that still play the game. But a lot of those people have joined this Discord, and it's quite hilarious to jump in there from time to time and see the nonsense that's going on. Like another one of my stories personally, a guy that I was raiding with and playing the guild with before I joined that particular guild, he only lived 3 hours away from me, and he and I, same thing, we played a lot together. We did all the dungeons, raids, everything together. Like we were kind of like, we paired up and that we did everything together. And so we planned, I was going to drive up to Dallas one weekend to hang out with him and his buddies. And oddly enough, it was when Hurricane Katrina hit. And so what should have been a 3-hour drive for me was a 10.5-hour drive for me to get to him. And I did it nonetheless. I said, screw this, I'm going. And it was a great weekend, and we had a great time. And he and I haven't spoken probably in a few years now, but for the better part of a decade, we stayed in touch and still talked. And I'm sure if I got on Facebook and messaged him, he'd probably respond, and we'd pick right back up like nothing had ever stopped. But I have quite a few friends that I've met either directly through game or bonded over games, but a lot of my group too were met through other people. Like my roommate, his hometown, a lot of the guys that he grew up with all play World of Warcraft and other games, and that's how I met them. And they were kind of my raiding group for a very long time. And then we kind of absorbed these other smaller groups of people, and oddly enough, they all, like, there's a whole group from California that I know really well. There's a group from Irving, Texas that we've met them many times, that we know them really well. But, again, the purpose of this episode, I think it just goes to show you that when you spend this much time doing any one thing in your life, you're going to bond with people. It's that whole kind of that mentality when you're in the trenches with somebody, despite maybe being very diverse from one another, you're probably going to find some common ground at some point and bond over it. But and Marty, go ahead.
It's even fun to see that, for instance, where my current roommate, he's that same guy who many years ago started the New Year's tradition with me. Yes, but it's fun to see that he got really interested in Denmark because of me, and then he actually moved here for 6 months to go on a theater school. And through that he got like a Danish network of people that he knows, and so every time he was in Denmark visiting me, obviously he wanted to meet up with these people as well. So then I met them. So I actually got some new Danish friends through him, because so his network bled back into my network, and it's just fun to see that I actually got new Danish friends through a Dutch guy who I met through World of Warcraft. And it's just interesting to see how all that can mingle together in weird ways.
Aren't your countries like arch rivals in real life, as much as those two countries could be considered arch rivals? Like, don't you guys hate each other?
The Netherlands and Denmark? No, I don't think so, actually. The Netherlands and Denmark is actually quite similar in culture-wise and how we are. So people find it's really interesting to see how similar we are. So no, I don't, not that country. I could probably mention a few other countries, but not the Netherlands. So
Well, yeah, and,
But
and
I
the,
mean,
the other side, Marty, too, is like, so you and I have met because of the game, not necessarily through the game, but because of the game. You know, I had the itch to start podcasting, and I found Dusty, who just has appeared in chat. What's up, Dusty?
Hey,
Who has
Dusty.
become a good friend of mine. And so Dusty and I started doing our Blizzard podcast, and then we were looking for guests like that. And we noticed you guys were doing the same thing we were, and you seemed like a fun group of guys. So we started having you guys in the show. You guys did return the favor, and it's just kind of segued from there. Whereas like now we're all doing Nerd This together. You're on here with me. I just did episode 205 for the Blue Recluse today with you and Michael. You know, now all 5 of us are friends, and it's just, again, I can't say this enough. When you spend this much time with something, you find common ground with people, and obviously, if by nature you are doing something this much, you probably are very passionate about it. And so someone else who's doing the same thing is probably passionate about it as well. You're gonna find that common ground, you know? Um,
Yeah, most
but
definitely.
I wanted to pose the question before we kind of get towards the end of the show today, because we're about 40 minutes in here. I still, to this day, I know I've already mentioned on the show, get asked all the time. Is it not weird to you that you meet these people and become so close to them, or meet them in real life, that you only knew them through the internet? And my answer is always no. You know, because again, I don't know how to explain somebody, make them understand. Like when I'm on Discord with them for anywhere from 2 to 10 hours a day, we're going to run out of shit to talk about in regards to the game. So at some point, we're going to start talking about what's going on in our personal lives, either directly or indirectly. So you're going to learn about that person. You know, I guess, what are y'all's thoughts about? And obviously, Marty, I know are probably pretty similar to me, but your thoughts about meeting people through game. You know, is it weird? Is it not weird? Are you, you know?
The thing is, no, I don't think it's weird, because you actually at this point you probably know them really well, because as you said, at some point you run out of in-game stuff to talk about, and then you start to talk about real life stuff. And in this day and age, you're probably Facebook friends with them or whatever, so you also know how they look. And I mean, it's really no difference than actually having a real life friend, because I mean they live in the real life as well. It's not a bot. So, but yeah, I can totally understand how people are not in this, who are not into gaming and are not into this, how they can feel it's a little bit weird, maybe, because I had coworkers as well who asked me um, um, the same questions. And uh, I remember one day, because I can't remember what it was. I think it was probably with the Blue Recluse or something. We did something. We did some videos where we recorded some game footage, and I had all the voiceovers of people talking together and people coordinating what they were doing and things like that. And I made a YouTube video of it, and I showed it to my coworker, who were like, "Oh my god, I didn't even realize that you talked that much together." I think people have this image that if you're playing games with someone, then you're just sitting in your mom's basement and playing with them, and you don't talk together. And that's not really the case. You might sit in your mom's basement, but I don't know. But
This is my basement.
okay.
I'm actually in my mom's basement right now. I'm in the
There we
process
go.
of looking for a place to live, but I'm in my mom's basement right now.
But you know, you are talking to people. It's not like you're sitting there in silence and with the lights out. So so you'll get to know people, and it's all, and I think it's always fun to meet up with people, only to realize that, oh, they're actually exactly as I imagined they would be. Because obviously you know them because you've talked to people.
Yeah. What about you, Oreo?
I don't think it's so much the people that you meet. It's trying to explain it to people maybe not of our generation
Mm.
that don't understand. You know, they probably grew up with the idea that meeting somebody over the internet means that they're probably stranger danger. I guess that's more the difficulty that you find, is trying to explain to people, you know, I know this person fairly well. And they go, well, no, you only know them over the internet. You can't know them that well.
I mean, when you run a guild with somebody, you get to see all sides of their personality. You know, you get to see them frustrated. You get to see them exuberant. You get to see them melancholy. You know, whatever synonyms you want to throw in there towards human emotion, you get that side of them because like I've seen Oreo mad. Something pissed him off, and he got mad. And same here. Like he's seen me live it, and he's seen me excited on same here. And when you do something that is so arguably passionate and very time investing, you're gonna get all sides of that person, whether they want you to see it or not. You know what I mean? And it's like, to me, it's like poker. Even if they are pretty reserved and they kind of seem even keeled for the most part, they're gonna do little things that you're gonna start to pick up on to know when they're upset or when they're not. Like, oh, they got off tonight, and tonight they just said bye instead of their typical goodbye, see you later. Like, uh-oh, they must be pissed, Even though the inflection of their voice didn't change, they just said bye. It was enough for you to let you know, uh-oh, they're mad. You know what I mean? So you get to know people, man. And I agree with you there, because my dad, he's the funniest one, because Cole and our other friend, the three of us were three amigos growing up. I can't tell how many times we took over my parents' living room, or his parents, or my other buddy's parents' living rooms, with all of our computers and our old CRT monitors to raid WoW, and we'd be there for right. It's like back when you actually had to seatbelt your monitor, so if you hit the brakes too hard, you didn't break it because it'd fly into the seat in front of it. And it's like, Dad, you see us doing this for 14 hours a day because I've occupied your couch for 14 hours with two other dudes, building up some gamer sweat, eating Cheetos and Kool-Aid, playing World of Warcraft. Like, I mean, I don't understand how this is a hard concept for you to understand. It. I'm spending this much time with other people, even though they may be across the world or the country, doing the exact same thing, talking to them the entire time we're doing it, And it's, in my mind, it's no different than playing on a sports team with somebody, when you're going to practices all the time, you're showing up to games, and you're winning and losing together, and you just kind of make friendships, or sometimes even ones you don't want to. The case of Tom and Marty thinking Tom was an asshole. I still think Tom might be an asshole, but
secretly he is. Yeah, nobody knows it. It's like it's just like the big Hollywood movies, and these actors have to work together, but in real life they actually hate each other. And it's the same here. It's the same relationship Tom and I have. We hate each other in real life, but we are together on the Blue Recluse.
Right.
So once a week we can talk together and have fun.
And kind of some lasting words I definitely wanted to touch upon is, sometimes you have people that you play with a lot, and you don't ever really get that close to them, but then something will happen. Like for me personally, when I went through all this stuff the last couple of weeks, I had a lot of people reach out to me, and some of these people that reached out to me are people I only knew in game, and I never really, they were part of my raid team, my guild for a long time, but they were never the people I ran Mythic Pluses with, or they're the people I went and farmed herbs with, or did world questing or whatever with, right? They were just another member of the guild. But the second they heard that something in my life was going awry, they reached out and just said, "Hey, listen, just want to let you know, thoughts are with you. Hope everything's okay. Let us know if we can do something for you," right? And that was cool. That's like, I really appreciate that. One of the guilds that Oreo and I were in last expansion, most of the guild was from Florida when the hurricane hit, and right as we joined them, they were in the process of waiting for 10 plus people to get back online. Oreo.
Yep.
And it was one of those things, like when we joined, we didn't really know any of these people, but we could see a lot of other people messaging them constantly, like, "Hey, you guys all right? You staying dry, safe, stuff like that." And the recent North Carolina incident, we didn't luckily have anybody in our group that I can think of that was affected by it. But, it was definitely one of those, I knew other groups that did, and they, same thing, they reached out to one another and stuff like that. So, sometimes whether you want to or not, these bonds happen, and something happens that kind of makes you reach out, and next thing you know, you guys are friends. But
I know we're probably towards the ending now, but I mean, I just quickly wanted maybe to touch a little bit upon that it's not just in the group of people that Ryan, and the group of people that I know, but I think that the whole community as a whole is also, I mean, if I meet someone and I find out that they have played World of Warcraft, then we can start talking about something straight away and start having like a conversation about something, and I think that like-mindedness is amazing, because it is sort of like the same type of people who play World of Warcraft. Obviously, you won't be able to like all of them. There will be someone that you won't be able to come along with, but then there's also the chance of the next person that I meet that also plays World of Warcraft is someone that I really can, have a relationship to, and I think that that's cool. And speaking of that community, because it's what is it like now? 1.5 hour ago, we talked about a story recently in the World of Warcraft community, and I mean there's loads of these stories, but this is just one of them where the creator of the Deadly Badmos, but yeah, the Deadly Boss mod, he is like in a sort of like a bad situation health wise at the moment, and he made a big post about it, that he needed to take care of that, and all of a sudden people found out, and the post sort of exploded, and were like, hey, if we can do something, and people paying on Patreon and PayPal and whatever, and that actually maybe made him be able to take care of all these things. And I think that's something that's really cute, really cool, and it warms my heart that these stories exist as well.
That's impressive, because you have a pretty cold heart most of the time.
I know, I'm really cold-hearted.
So yeah, and obviously we could continue to talk upon this all day, but I think we've made our point, and the idea today was not to sit here and talk for an hour and a half, but was to open the floor to telling our respective stories, in honor of my recently fallen comrade and brother. He went by the gamer tag of Schwooged, or Spread It On was his warrior, but Schwooged was his resto shaman that he primarily played. And he was always one of the first ones to step up when we were trying to get competitive rating, and he would kind of stop us when we get a little overly competitive, saying we need to cut people and stuff like that. And like, no, this guy's hilarious, man. He's really cool. Like, nah, like we're good. We'll keep him around. And a lot of those people have become in-person friends like that. And so he was always the one to kind of facilitate building some of these friendships and bonds in game or over games. So I definitely wanted to do today's episode to kind of one last hurrah in honor of him, despite the fact that I did deliver part of his eulogy at his funeral. But so this one's for him, and for anybody else out there that's lost a friend that, or even a family member that they primarily played games with. So for you guys. But other than that, I don't really have anything else to add. Do you guys?
I have one last thing.
Okay,
That is,
go ahead.
because we're talking a lot about friendships and all the people that we play together with. I think my plea is just for everybody listening that remember, that when you're doing something in a group inside World of Warcraft, you know that it's actually real people, because you know these people. But when you're signing up for something like looking for raid or random dungeon finder or whatever, remember that those people are also real people on the other side of that screen. So don't be an asshole to them if they don't know some specific tactics or something like that. Yeah, that's just wanted to end on that note, I think.
Fair enough. Or you got anything to add, man?
I was gonna say, is that gonna be our theme of this episode? Is don't be an asshole?
No, because I still want to be an asshole to you.
Oh well, we already knew that was gonna happen.
No, I think Marty's right. I think obviously if you have a certain rapport with people, if your normal interaction is to be assholes to one another, and that's copacetic, then great. That's Oreo and I, we rib each other all the time, and that's just kind of how we are. And with Cole, it's the same way, and most of our group is the same way. But when you're just in a random pub, like what Marty was saying, maybe don't be a dick. If maybe if somebody fucks up a mechanic or something like that, obviously ask them what happened, or maybe point it out, but don't be a dick, But I don't know, just a thought. Maybe don't be a dick. I don't know.
True enough. Oh, I'm good here. You guys are good.
Cool, man. Well, in honor of all those that we've lost and the friendships we have made that are still around, this episode is for you guys. But that's going to do it for us, guys. Next week, Sunday, 2:30 Central Standard Time, we're going to be doing the episode where we give our thoughts on Old Deer and the current state of raiding and Mythic Plus, now that it's really up in there in the in-game content. So next week, 2:30 Central Standard Time, Sunday, right here on twitch.tv/TRC podcast. We'll be back at it. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next weekend. You guys want to find Marty, you can find him over at the Blizzard podcast he does, where they talk all things Blizzard games. the Blue Recluse. If you want to find him on Twitter, you can find him at Unamathil. For me, guys, if you want to find me and personally, you can find me over on my Twitch and Twitter, which are both at Mega Irish Gaming, or you can find me on my All Things Blizzard podcast, which I do with my good friend Dusty Porter, the Blizzard Umbrella. If you want to find us here on the show, you can find us at our Twitter account, which is at _TRC podcast, or you can find us on our email, theraidersconfessional@gmail.com, no apostrophe on the S. That being said, guys, Dusty, take us out of here, my man. See ya.
Sorry, I died. Was I supposed to stand in the green puddles or the orange ones?
Hey, get together over there, bud.
This show has been hosted by Dragon Powered Studios, and the intro and outro has been brought to you by Thankful Cow Solutions.
Moo.